Hi, Bill Federer here. In this episode of How We Got Here, we are going to look at the Magna Carta. To understand the significance of the Magna Carta, one must know what preceded it. England was being invaded by Dane Vikings from Scandinavia in the 9th century. They raided, pillaged, plundered, destroying homes, churches, libraries. They were unstoppable, defeating all opposition till they encountered 23-year-old King Alfred. Forced into the swampy tidal marshes of Somerset, Alfred, king of the Anglos and Saxons, upon a rock, they swore a resistance movement which began in 878 AD. According to biographer Bishop Asser, Alfred attacked the whole pagan army, fighting ferociously in dense order, and by divine will, eventually won the victory. King Alfred's battle song was, "When the enemy comes in, a roaring like a flood, coveting the kingdom and hungering for blood, the Lord will raise a standard up and lead his people. The Lord of hosts will go before, defeating every foe, defeating every foe. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. Some men trust in chariots, some in the horse. We will depend on the name of Christ our Lord. The Lord has made my hands to war, my fingers to fight. The Lord lays low our enemies, but he raises us upright. He raises us upright. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. 1,000 fall on my left hand and 10,000 to the right, but he will defend us from the arrow in the night, protect us from the terrors of the teeth of the devourer. Imbue us with your spirit, Lord, encompass us with power, encompass us with power. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. For the Lord is our defense, Jesus defend us. Alfred drove the Danes back to England's coastal area of East Anglia, where he gave King Guthrum the choice of sailing back to Scandinavia or converting to Christianity. He chose the latter. Alfred's treaty let Guthrum rule 15 shires under a top-down Dane law. G.K. Chesterton's narrative poem about Alfred, called The Ballad of the White Horse, written in 1910, is said to have influenced J.R.R. Tolkien in his writing of The Lord of the Rings. Afterwards, King Alfred the Great wrote his law code, drawing from as far back in history as Lucius, king of Britain, circa 156 AD, who, quote, prayed and entreated that he might be made a Christian. St. Patrick's Celtic Senchus More laws, written around 438 AD. Laws of Ethelbert of Kent, circa 602 AD, the first Saxon king in England to be baptized by St. Augustine of Canterbury. Laws of Christian King Ine of Wessex, circa 694 AD, and laws of Christian King Offa of Mercia, circa 755 AD. Born in the country of Oxfordshire, King Alfred the Great's emphasis on learning and his love of books has been credited with beginning what became Oxford, the oldest university in England. He included in the preface of his law code the 10 Commandments, passages from the book of Exodus, Christ's Sermon on the Mount, and the Acts of the Apostles. King Alfred wrote, "These judgments, which Almighty God himself spoke to Moses and commanded him to keep. Now, since the Lord's only begotten Son, our God and healing Christ, has come to Middle Earth," which was the term used for the Mediterranean world, he said that he did not come to break nor forbid these commandments, but to approve them and to teach them with all mild-heartedness and lowly-mindedness. King Alfred's Book of Laws was called the Doom Book, doom being an Old English term for judgment. Alfred's compilation of laws are considered the basis of English common law and were important in the development of such concepts as individual who had rights derived from a creator, which the government should protect, liberty of the individual, the family, the church, equal justice for all under the law, and a decentralized government. Leviticus 19:15 stated, "You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor defer to the great, but you are to judge your neighbor fairly." Similarly, Alfred's Doom book stated, "Doom very evenly. Do not doom one doom to the rich and another to the poor, nor doom one doom to your friend and another to your foe." Winston Churchill wrote in his Nobel Prize winning book, A History of the English-Speaking Peoples, published in 1956, he stated, "King Alfred's Book of Laws, as set out in the existing laws of Kent, Wessex, and Mercia, attempted to blend the Mosaic Code with Christian principles and old Germanic customs." Around 911 AD, Norse Vikings called Normans invaded an area in northern France. The land became called Normandy. Through intermarriage with royal families there, the Normans eventually became Christian. Beginning in 999 AD, Normans sailed down to the Mediterranean and drove Muslim occupying forces out of Sicily and southern Italy. Norman Richard I of Capua took control of Calabria in the toe of Italy and pushed back Muslim raiders. In 1061, Norman Robert and his brother Roger Guiscard recaptured Italy from Muslims called Saracens. In 1016, Danish King Canute the Great took control of all of England, which he and his sons ruled under Dane law till 1042, when Edward the Confessor became king. Edward the Confessor was the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, ruling until his death in 1066. He was a great-great-great-grandson of Alfred the Great and attempted to revive English common law. Edward the Confessor was very pious and would lay his hand upon the sick to be healed, a tradition which subsequent kings followed, being called the royal touch. In 1066, William the Conqueror left Normandy, crossed the English Channel, and invaded England, winning the Battle of Hastings to become the first Norman king of England. William replaced King Alfred's law with a more top-down feudal type of government, which increased power to collect the Dane Geld tax, as compiled in his Doomsday Book of Judgments. This power was abused by William's son, William II, but when he died, another son, Henry I, introduced the Charter of Liberties in the year 1100 as a concession to gain support of leading barons and earls. The Charter of Liberties were largely ignored by monarchs till the signing of the Magna Carta. Meanwhile, Seljuk Turks invaded the Byzantine Empire. Cities were destroyed, graves were desecrated, resulting in the bones of the Greek Saint Nicholas being removed to Bari, Italy in the year 1087. Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Comnenus begged Western Europe for help. Pope Urban II appealed to European kings at the Council of Clermont, and they responded by sending the First Crusade in the year 1095 to retake the holy city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem had been a Jewish city since the time of King David, around 1000 BC. Then it became a Christian city under Emperor Constantine in the year 325 AD, until it was conquered by Caliph Umar in 638 AD. In the year 1099, Crusaders led by Godfrey of Bouillon regained control of Jerusalem and held it in Christian hands until 1187, when it was reconquered by Saladin, the Sunni Muslim Sultan of the Ayyubid Sultanate of Egypt and Syria. In the year 1189, Richard I, the Lionheart, became King of England. his great-grandfather, Fulk V, had been king of Jerusalem from the year 1131 to 1143. In 1189, Richard the Lionheart left England to go off and fight in the Third Crusade. While away, his younger brother John was left in charge of England. The legend of Robin Hood is considered to have originated during this time. After the Third Crusade, on his overland return trip to England, Richard the Lionheart was shipwrecked and then attempted to travel across Europe in disguise, but was captured by a rival king, Leopold V, Duke of Austria. And then he was transferred to Henry VI, the Holy Roman Emperor, who did not like him either, and demanded that England give a king's ransom of 150,000 marks. Richard finally made it back to England in the year 1194, but was killed just 5 years later fighting in Normandy, leaving King John to rule again in the year 1199. Now, William the Conqueror, way back in 1066, had left Normandy and invaded England and took it over, and Normandy was still under his control. But in the year 1205, King John of England lost control of Normandy to King Philip II of France. England's barons became very frustrated by this loss and by King John's absolute and arbitrary despotism. They asked Archbishop of Canterbury, Stephen Langton, for assistance. Drawing from the Bible, Archbishop Langton composed limitations on King John's power, drawing back from the Charter of Liberties and also Alfred the Great's laws. His document became called the Magna Carta. Langton is also credited with dividing the Bible into chapter divisions, which are still used today. On June 15th, in the year 1215, 25 barons with their army of God surrounded King John on the plains of Runnymede. There, they forced him to sign the Magna Carta, the great charter of English liberties. British Judge Lord Denning described the Magna Carta as the greatest constitutional document of all time, the foundation of the freedom of the individual against the arbitrary authority of the despot. The Magna Carta limited the previously unbridled centralized executive power. Winston Churchill stated in 1956, "Here is a law which is above the king, and which even he must not break." This reaffirmation of a supreme law and its expression in a general character is the great work of the Magna Carta, and this alone justifies the respect in which men have held it. Sir Edwin Coke stated, "The Magna Carta will have no sovereign." The Magna Carta began the process of redefining government's purpose from dominating people's lives into guaranteeing individual rights, culminating in the US Constitution. Political power changed from top down to bottom up. Sir Edwin Coke's book, Institutes on the Laws of England, which emphasized the importance of the Magna Carta, was studied by John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. Sir Edwin Coke had written in a 1610 case, "When an act of parliament is against the common right or reason, the common law will adjure such an act as void." When Britain imposed the hated Stamp Act on the American colonies, the Massachusetts Assembly responded that it, quote, "was against the Magna Carta and the natural rights of Englishmen, and therefore, according to Lord Coke, null and void." Magna Carta, Clause 1, said the English church shall be free and shall have its rights undiminished and its liberties unimpaired. This is reflected in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Magna Carta, Clause 6, said if our Chief Justice, our officials, or any of our servants offend in any respect against any man, and the offenses is made known to 4 of the said 25 barons, they shall come to us and claim immediate redress. This is reflected in the First Amendment. and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Magna Carta, Clause 12, no scutage, tax, nor aid shall be imposed on our kingdom unless by common counsel. This is reflected in the revolutionary phrase, no taxation without representation, and in the Declaration of Independence, quote, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Magna Carta, Clause 13, we also will and grant that all other cities, boroughs, towns, and ports shall enjoy their liberties in and free customs is reflected in the Constitution, Article 4, Section 2. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. And Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution, full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. The Magna Carta, Clause 20, says, for a trivial offense, a free man shall be fined only in portion to the degree of his offense, and for a serious offense correspondingly, but not so heavily as to deprive him of his livelihood. This is reflected in the 8th Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Magna Carta, Clause 28, no constable or other bailiff shall take corn or other provisions from anyone without immediately tendering money. This is reflected in the 5th Amendment. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Magna Carta, Clause 38. No official shall place a man on trial upon his own unsupported statement without producing credible witnesses to the truth of it. This is reflected in the 6th Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to be confronted with the witnesses against him. The Magna Carta, Clause 39. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions or outlawed or exiled or deprived of his standing in any way, nor will we proceed with force against him except by lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. This is reflected in the 5th Amendment, nor shall any person be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And it's the 14th Amendment, which says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Magna Carta, Clause 40, says, to no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right or justice. This is reflected in the 6th Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. If King John did not adhere to the Magna Carta, the 25 barons promised to levy war against him. The U.S. Supreme Court wrote in Bank of Columbia versus Oakley in 1819, the words of the Magna Carta were intended to secure the individual from the arbitrary exercise of the powers of government, unrestrained by the established principles of private right and distributive justice. In over 100 U.S. Supreme Court decisions, the Magna Carta is referenced regarding due process of law, trial by a jury of one's peers, the importance of a speedy and unbiased trial, protection against excessive bail or fines or cruel and unusual punishment. Acknowledging America's debt to the Magna Carta, the American Bar Association erected a monument in England at Runnymede in 1957. Justice William J. Brennan Jr. stated in rededication address to the American Bar Association's memorial to the Magna Carta in 1985, the Magna Carta, in Bryce's words, was the starting point of the constitutional history. Throughout the 196-year history of the Supreme Court of the United States, the bedrock principles of the Magna Carta have had and continue to have a profound influence over the justices' deliberations. The Magna Carta ends, for the salvation of our souls and the souls of our heirs, and unto the honor of God. Thank you for watching.